So peace is the foundation. Get attached to the divine, and that becomes the intensity of the desires goes down, the number of desires goes down. The fulfillment of no worldly desire can ever bring lasting happiness. How can happiness exist in the absence of peace? Dhyanamoolam gurormurti Pujamoolam guru padam Mantramoolam gurur vakyam Mokshamoolam guru kripa. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. My dear brothers and sisters, the love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. The topic of today's discussion is, how can happiness exist in the absence of peace? This is more or less a literal translation of a very profound expression in the Gita, Ashantasya kutoh sukham. Where there is Ashanti, how can there be sukh or happiness? Now, what's the relationship between happiness and peace? Happiness is something which we all want, we understand, and we are all looking for it. Not necessarily always successfully, but all the same, we all want to be happy and we are looking for it. Some people even consider that to be the very goal of life. But then peace, we don't very often think about. To understand that, let's see that does anyone really get perpetual happiness? And if it is not perpetual, what is it that it alternates with? We find that it alternates with sorrow, which means that if we were to simplify it, we are experiencing all the time a sine wave. When it reaches the top, it is happiness. When it reaches the bottom, it is sorrow. And goes on like that. But then when this wave of happiness is coming down, before it actually goes down towards sorrow, what does it pass through? And when this wave of sorrow, after going down, when it is coming up, before it goes to happiness, what does it pass through? What is that point? That point is closer to peace, but we don't appreciate it. To us, it more or less looks like a neutral state of indifference during which nothing is happening. And in fact, much of our life is routine and it's spent in that way without our realizing it. But then one of the deeper truths is that happiness, in fact, comes coupled with sorrow. It's a part of the dualities. And these dualities are waves, like the waves of an ocean, which are hiding something stable, that straight line, and that is peace. And we get some experience of it as we progress on the spiritual path. We find that what normally makes us happy or unhappy does not do it to the same extent. Both tend to go down. We don't go into a state of exhilaration by all sorts of cheap thrills. So those waves become much smaller. And at the same time, we don't go deep down into a depression because of something going wrong. We can deal with that also better, which means instead of waves like this, we start experiencing waves like this. And if the process were to continue, we visualize that the ultimate culmination of this process will be a straight line, and that will be peace. And that is the relationship between joy and sorrow and peace. And let's see why without that stable peace, in fact, happiness cannot be really properly experienced. This comes in the second chapter of the Gita, more or less towards the end of the second chapter. And this last section in the second chapter of the Gita starts with a question from Arjun to Sri Krishna. And the question that he asks is, Arjuna Vacha Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. So Arjuna is asking what the characteristics of a sthita pragya. Pragya is, our intelligence. Sthita, stable. That the person whose intelligence is stable or has been stabilized, what is the language that he speaks? And this person who is in a state of samadhi, he is equating sthita pragya with a person who is in a state of samadhi. Kim prabhasheta, how does he speak? Kim asita, how does he sit? Vrajeta kim, how does he walk? Which means that he is expecting some external visible signs of a person who has stabilized intelligence, because in the preceding verses of the second chapter, Sri Krishna has been telling him what is the importance of stabilizing your mind, because the very beginning of the Gita is with Arjuna being in a state of mental turmoil. He can't decide. In spite of all the knowledge that he has, he was a very learned person, and he knew all the mores and the customs of that period, by following which one could live an ethically sound life and a reasonably happy life. He knew all that. But here he was in a state of crisis where, in spite of knowing everything, he could not decide what the right thing to do would be, whether to fight or not to fight, and that's why he was in a state of turmoil. So his mind was not stable. And he has been told that stabilize your mind. So he's asking that what are the characteristics of a person whose mind has been stabilized? And this is Shloka 54 of the second chapter, and 12 verses later, in the 66th one, comes this expression, Ashantasya kutah sukham. So now what is it that transpires between these two, the beginning of the question and the answer that is given in these 11 or 12 verses, and then comes towards the end of this section, this expression that how can there be happiness without peace? Now the answer in the intervening verses basically revolves around desires. That the desires are a source of sorrow, and the desires arise mainly from sensory pleasures, our desire for sensory pleasures, our desire to possess and to enjoy objects of pleasure. So that is what goes on in these intervening verses. Now let's see desires, how they can be a source of sorrow when they are not fulfilled, and also when they are fulfilled. When desires are not fulfilled, they are a source of sorrow, one can understand. I want something, if I don't get it, I'll be unhappy. But how is it that fulfilled desires can also be a source of sorrow? There are several things that contribute to it, and that is why the happiness that comes from fulfillment of a worldly desire actually does not last, and in fact it gets coupled with a sorrow, and that's why the sine wave. Now, one of the things that happens very often is that when we want something, we visualize what happiness it will give us, but we overlook the tax that we have to pay to get that happiness. We overlook what comes attached to it. So when the desire is fulfilled, we realize that it is not pure happiness, it is adulterated with some problems that are associated with it. Another thing that happens is that when this object stays with us for some time, we find that we get used to it, and we don't like it that much anymore. Like a child who wants a toy very badly, and when the child gets it, it plays with it, it's very happy, but then gradually doesn't find it so much of a source of happiness, and finally a stage comes when the toy is just lying in a corner collecting dust, and now he wants another toy. As we grow up, the toys keep changing, and in fact keep getting more expensive, but basically this continues throughout life. So we get saturated with it. That's another reason why it does not last. And why does that Sorrow comes because now we want another toy. That new unfulfilled desire becomes a source of sorrow. So that's why happiness comes coupled with sorrow. There are many other things that could also happen. One of them is that if you are very sensitive, you feel, well, my desire has been fulfilled, but there are many others who have the same desire, but their desire has not been fulfilled. That itself becomes a source of sorrow. Yet another thing that can happen is if everything is going right, you start feeling, how long will it last? Because we realize that this desire that has been fulfilled has brought us an object which can't last forever. That applies to all the worldly desires. And because of that sense of insecurity, we start feeling, well, when it disappears, then what will happen? Whether it is some nice food that we have got today, how long will the taste last? We know it will last only a few minutes. Will I get it again tomorrow? If it is a child whom we love very much, what will happen when the child grows up and gets married, leaves home? Then what will happen? So, something or the other brings that doubt in, and we start getting anxious about how long will it last. So these are some of the reasons why even fulfilled desires become a source of sorrow. Now what is the solution then? The one solution which sometimes is suggested is suppress the desires. Not easy. Keep the objects away from your sight. Hide them somewhere. Don't look at them. Stay away from them. Sort of asceticism. Live a life where you will not have temptation around you. Even that does not always work, because somewhere lurking within remains that desire for those objects which we are trying to keep away from, and in fact the desire can intensify because now we are thinking about them, although they are not around us, thinking about them with greater intensity. So what is the solution then? The solution, practical solution is that, well, some of the desires should be fulfilled. Because if you tell a person whose no desire has been fulfilled, that the fulfillment of these desires will not bring lasting happiness, the person says, well, let me fulfill this desire, then I'll see. So he wants to experience it, because if the person is told that the fulfillment of the desire will not bring lasting happiness, this remains only theoretical knowledge. Now this theoretical knowledge doesn't mean much to us. It's experience that matters. And for this theoretical knowledge to be experienced, we need to experience it ourselves. Then that knowledge becomes real to us, internalized. So therefore fulfillment of some desires is necessary, and when this happens, every time a desire is fulfilled, the person knows when the next desire comes, well, I can try to fulfill it, but I know history will repeat itself. Once again, I will find that it did not bring lasting happiness. So some desires should be fulfilled. And the result of this is that gradually the intensity of the desires goes down, the number of desires goes down, and that itself brings us a lot of peace and satisfaction, because our expectations from the fulfillment of a desire also go down. We know that it will not bring lasting happiness. Now this leads to eventually what we may call inner renunciation, because suppressing our desires or keeping away from them using brute moral force is outer renunciation. That is giving them up externally, but the inner attachment still remains. If we, on the other hand, we realize this, that the fulfillment of these desires will not bring lasting happiness, then it becomes something which is internal, which we have realized it, we have experienced it, this knowledge becomes real to us, and therefore the attachment itself has gone down, and therefore the desire, the intensity of the desire has gone down, the number of desires has gone down. So it is detachment which is from inside, it's inner renunciation. And another thing important thing which helps inner renunciation is finding a substitute. Finding a substitute better than the desires which we have overcome in this way. Because something we want to be attached to, We can't stay in a vacuum. That is human nature. And what are we seeking for when we are looking for happiness in something that we want or something which we get attached to? We are looking for basically two things. One is intensity, the other is permanence. We want intensity of happiness, intensity of joy, and we want it to last forever. Now, what is it that can last forever? Only one thing, and that is the divine. So, get attached to the divine, and that becomes the substitute which will actually last forever. And if we are really attached to it and realize the glory of the Lord, it will also have that intensity. And that is what Sri Krishna tells him in the 61st verse, in that expression which has just 3 words, Yukta Asita Matparaha. That is, be seated in Asita, Yukta Matparaha. Yukta means joined. Joined to whom? Sri Krishna is telling, joined to me. So, join me, stay joined to me, be stationed in that poise, where you are always attached to me, you are always joined to me, you are in a state of yoga with me. Yoga is union, you are united with me. Stay in that. Now, Sri Aurobindo says that in these 3 words, in fact, Sri Krishna has given him the secret of all the knowledge that he will reveal to him in the succeeding 16 chapters. Because you find that throughout those 16 chapters, this itself keeps coming again and again in different forms. Man mana bhava, be my-minded, think like me, feel like me. That will be only if you are united with him, united with the divine, Sri Krishna tells him. Then it is Mai arpit mano buddhi, apna man aur buddhi, your mind and intelligence, that is your feelings and thoughts. Arpit kar do mujhe. Offer them to me. Offer all your feelings and thoughts to me. Which means, if you offer them to me, instead you start feeling and thinking like me. Don't retain your personal intelligence and your personal feelings. Maya arpita mano buddhi, man mana bhava, be my-minded. And then comes in the 18th chapter towards the end, Mamekam sharanam vraja, take refuge only in me. Now, these are all which go along the same lines. So, here in simpler terms, because it's still the beginning of the lesson that goes on for 18 chapters, is just being told, be stationed in such a poise that you are united with me, yukta asita matpara. So that is the solution that will lead to inner renunciation, that is tyaga, not sannyas. Sannyas is outer renunciation. Tyaga of that attachment, that asakti to objects of sensory pleasure, because that is the basic source of ashanti. Ashanti when the desire is not fulfilled, and ashanti when the desire is fulfilled, which means the mind stays turbulent. And that is in fact the very nature of the mind. The mind has basically 2 aspects, feeling and thinking. Feelings are by very nature volatile. And the intellect, thinking part of the mind, is by nature vacillating. It doesn't have fixity. Now, if something is volatile and vacillating, to stabilize it, it needs an anchor. And it is to be fixed to something which is stable. And what is that anchor? The anchor is the divine. And is the divine only outside? The way Arjun could see Sri Krishna outside, he was fortunate. But then, we don't see that so easily. So, at least we can make an attempt to see it within. Because our soul is also a manifest, soul is itself our divine essence. And therefore, that if we go within, we can find that Sri Krishna within. And then, that is the first step. When we do that, we find that, well, that Sri Krishna is not only within me, I am not so unique, I am like anybody else, it is also within everybody else. And that in fact gives us the fundamental basis of oneness with everyone. So, all the superficial differences that I find with others, that we are separated by the boundaries of our skins, we look different, we talk different languages, so we are each a distinct individual. Well, that is a reality, but that is a reality of a lower order, a relatively superficial reality. What is the deeper reality? The deeper reality is that the divine essence of each one of us is exactly the same, and therefore there is a fundamental oneness that unites us in spite of all the superficial differences. So this is how this knowledge proceeds, and we may turn to it again a little bit. But then let's try and see whether it's only desires that are the source of ashanti or an unstable mind, or is it something else that can also destabilize the mind. Of course, the basic cause will remain the same. That is not being stationed in the divine. When we are not stationed there, there will be ashanti. When we are not united with the divine, there will be ashanti. That basic cause remains. Because when we are not united with that, we stay in a state of ignorance. It is the divine that knows everything. When we are united with that, we are united with that which knows everything. And therefore, it is the ignorance which is behind all ashanti. But at the same time, for the way we normally look at things, we can look at a few other sources of ashanti, because we found that it is shanti or peace which actually is the very foundation of all happiness. So what are the other sources of ashanti? One of them is regrets about the past. If only 40 years ago land was selling in Green Park for only 100 rupees a square yard or something, wish I had bought it at that time. Now, something like that. Now, that creates ashanti. The past is dead and gone. Nobody can change it. Still it creates ashanti. Regrets about the past. And it's not just about such obvious and ridiculous things. It can be very serious also. For example, a woman who after getting her first child gives up her job because she feels that the child is more important, and therefore I give up the job. 20 years later, the child is grown up, the child doesn't need her, the child goes abroad for studying, and then she finds that in the meantime, her friends who did not give up jobs, they are holding such important positions, they made so much money during this period, and they didn't have to stay at home and do all the household work for the child, for the in-laws and the husband and so on. They didn't have to do all that work also. So she finds that, well, I probably made a mistake. Regrets about the past. Why did I give up that job? She's regretting that. Now, what we have to show her is, how was that choice made? Go to the roots of it. The choice was made because she felt that the child's need to have her around was more important than her need to continue with the job. So when we give preference to somebody else's need as compared to our own, it's an expression of love. And that type of love in which you are not looking at whose need is what, you are looking at which need is more important. You are not looking at what is my need, what is somebody else's need. You are just seeing which need is more important, which means that you are doing it as if you and the other person are one. You are addressing the more important need first. Now, what is this oneness? This oneness gets expressed as love, and that's why you did it. Now that comes from the highest level of consciousness. For a woman to do it for her child, it's easy. She looks upon the child as an extension of herself, so she's treating the child as one with her, and therefore she can do it. So this is good training and beginning for what should actually become a wider process continuing lifelong, which means that extending that love to others. Idhar ho beta, bending to see, can move the cushion a little. So for the woman it is easy, but as the life continues, we can extend that process. So how about this lady who gave up this job for the sake of the child? Now what she has to be told is, firstly, you took that decision from the highest level of consciousness. That decision is never wrong. Why you are regretting now is because we can't stay stationed there all the time. Yukta asita matparaha. Stay united with me. She united with the divine at that time and she made this choice. But then we can't stay there all the time. We can't remain stationed and seated there all the time. We slide down to the ordinary mental level, which means that the mind, which is not sufficiently illumined by the soul, it is not working in the light of the soul, it's working its more habitual nature, which is of an imperfect type. So Now, what is the normal thinking level, normal intellect? How does it work? It works by calculations. What is it I gained? What is I lost? She's looking at all the things that she lost as a result of giving up the job. Now, this type of calculation is not a part of love. Love does not calculate. So, when she loved, she did not calculate all this, although she knew all this even at that time. That calculation was out. She was not calculating. So, now she's calculating. So, it's because of sliding down. Now, what you have to do is lift yourself up again to the same level. When you lift yourself up again to the same level, what will you realize? You will realize this period was not wasted, because it was spent showering love on somebody by giving what you had and what the child and the others in the family needed. It was spent doing that. When you do that, you are not helping those whom you gave this, you are helping yourself, because you are growing spiritually. Now, what does it mean? You are becoming a changed person. You are becoming more and more familiar with the ultimate source of happiness. The ultimate source of happiness is giving. By giving for 20 years continuously, you have become an expert in giving. When we do something repeatedly for 20 years, we become experts. You have become an expert in giving. And that is what you have gained. Now, that expertise doesn't show in a certificate. And what you have gained is joy of giving throughout these 20 years. Now, all you have to do is lift yourself up to the same level. You'll find there's no dearth of those around you who still need what you can give. They may not be related to you by blood or marriage, but that doesn't matter. We are all one. So, they are one with you. Experience this. Learn to experience the same sense of oneness with those who are not related to you in this way. Start doing it for them. You'll once again get the experience, same experience of joy and fulfillment which you got by doing it for your child and the family. Now, that is, which means extrapolation of the same process. And now it is easier for you because you have become an expert in it. Maybe 20 years ago it was difficult. Now it is easy because now you are an expert. So, that is the solution. So, regrets about the past. Anxiety about the future, another thing. You can say, well, that is valid. Now, anxiety about the future is again a function of the intellect, which has a tendency to visualize the future and sometimes quite negatively, thinking of all the things that could go wrong. Now, if you think of all the things that could go wrong, nobody can give you a guarantee that they will not. That also is impossible. Nobody can give a guarantee that none of those things will actually materialize. Probably they will not, most of them will not, but at the same time nobody can have a guarantee that all the wrong things that you visualize, everything that could go wrong will actually not happen. Nobody can give that guarantee, and therefore that anxiety remains. If you do not have the guarantee, you remain anxious, you feel insecure. So that is what creates that anxiety. Now, what is the solution? The solution is let go. Because when you find that your mind is incapable of doing it, then let go, and leave it to the one who will take care of everything, the divine. So once again you have to unite with that one. So the solution still remains the same, unite with the one. Now, I'll try to go over this story quickly, but I feel tempted to tell you a story which illustrates this. There was this person in the United States whose parents wanted him to be a doctor. He also wanted to be a doctor, but then he joined a college where he had to study science, physics, chemistry and all that before he joined medicine. That happens all over the world. So he was studying that. And he was in a good college, and many students who joined that college did actually get into medicine later. He was an intelligent person. He had been able to get into a good competitive college, and there was a reasonable chance he will actually become a doctor. But then what happened was that the professor of organic chemistry came and said, those who don't do well in my course never get into medicine. Now, organic chemistry is a subject which many of you would know, which requires quite a good memory. Now, this boy didn't have a good memory. He could understand many things, but he didn't have a good memory. So he thought, if I don't have a good memory, which it means that now I'll not be good at organic chemistry. If I'm not good at organic chemistry, I will not get into medicine. And then, he thought that if I'll not get to medicine, then what will happen? He got anxious about it. And then gradually, what happened was that he came to the conclusion that I'm quite stupid. It's probably by some sort of a accident that I'm in this competitive college. But actually, I'm not actually intelligent enough to become a doctor anyway. And he went into a depression. And now we know that if a person goes into a depression, he can also fall ill, the immune system becomes weaker. So he got a fever which refused to go away. And that actually led to another wave of thinking in him. He started thinking that, well, he got a revelation one day. In this type of states, when you are going through depression, illness, your mind, can come up with some surprising revelations. The revelation he got was the fulfillment of no worldly desire can ever bring lasting happiness. Something, which we talked about some time back. So it was a profound revelation. So he thought, well, becoming a doctor is also the fulfillment of a worldly desire. And therefore, even if I become a doctor, it will not actually bring lasting happiness. And then he thought, well, whether I grow rich, even if I grow rich, that will not bring lasting happiness. If I get married to a beautiful girl, that will also not bring lasting happiness, because all these are worldly desires. So if fulfillment of no worldly desire will bring lasting happiness, what is the point in living? Why not commit suicide? And then he thought, why didn't this bright idea occur to me earlier? He said, well, this idea didn't occur to me earlier because I'm stupid. That only proves that I'm stupid. That's why it has taken me so long to arrive at such a simple idea that the fulfillment of no worldly desire brings lasting happiness, and therefore life is not worth living, and therefore I should end my life. It has taken me so long to realize this. But before he could carry out this, his parents came to know he has fever, so told him, son, come along home, we'll get you treated by a good doctor. And he gave in, he went home. Now his parents were friendly with an Indian Swami, Swami Sachidanand. They were friendly with him because their daughter, that is, this person's name is Dinornish. His sister had gone through a similar existential crisis, and the Swamiji had brought her back on the rails. So when this boy went home and they realized that this boy has also got derailed like his sister, they called the Swamiji home, invited him for dinner, and before dinner they requested him to say something. Now Swamijis are always ready with a discourse. So he agreed readily. I am not a Swamiji, but in general I am also ready with a discourse all the time. So anyway, so his Swamiji settled down and started speaking. He said, one of the first things he said was, the fulfillment of no worldly desire can ever bring lasting happiness. Dinoni said, well, this is something I already knew. But then he thought, let me listen further, because the Swamiji himself looks quite happy. What is it that is making him happy? And then what emerged was, the true source of happiness is within you. So once again, unite with that which is within you. Be stationed there. So he decided, well, that is the source of happiness. That became a turning point in his life. He recovered from the fever. He went back to the college. He said, well, I'll study my way. I'll try to understand things. My memory may be bad. I'll give it a best shot. If I become a doctor, fine. If I don't, fine. Because in any case, that will not be a source of lasting happiness. But life is not just about that. I'll find my happiness within. So instead of being outwardly defined, he became more inwardly defined. And the interesting thing is that he did get into medical school. And when he got into medical school, he ended up being a different type of doctor. He is the one, he became a cardiologist, and he is a pioneer who brought yoga in the treatment of heart disease. Dean Ornish is his name, and he has a famous book, Dr. Dean Ornish's program for reversing heart disease. So anyway, so anxiety about the future. This person had anxiety about the future. Will I become a doctor? Will I not become a doctor? And where did he find the solution? Again, the same solution. Be seated, be united with the one, the Krishna within you. So that is where he found it. What else? It can be a source of ashanti. We are looking at different sources of ashanti. Criticism. Somebody criticizes us, finds our faults, points out a defect. What is the first response? Usually I have seen the first response is deny and defend. No, you are wrong, I don't have these defects, and go into on the defensive. A very poor response. Sometimes get angry if you can afford to. Get angry with that person. Not only you deny it, you get angry also. So, that is the first response, but that is not true. No matter what type of criticism it is, because criticism can also be of many types. Important thing is to accept it with gratitude. There may be a grain of truth in it. That only shows us our own weaknesses, and in that sense it is useful, we can work on those weaknesses. So that is the first thing that is important. But then what are the different types of criticism we can have? There are different type of criticisms that we face. One is what we call hostile criticism. Criticism itself is rooted in some deep-rooted antagonism with us. Whether it's jealousy or whatever it is, but some sort of antagonism is inbuilt. So one example is the criticism of Indian culture by William Archer. William Archer was a drama critic, but then he strayed into wrong territory. Instead of confining himself to journalism and just writing critiques on dramas, he decided to write a critique on the Indian culture, and a very hostile type of a commentary on the Indian culture, because he was determined to demolish the Indian culture, show how a primitive barbarian culture it was, in which there was no place for ethics and morality, and so on and so forth. He said many things which are completely ridiculous. So, but anyway, what was the result? At least two responses. One was a book by one of his own countrymen, Sir John Woodroffe, Is India Civilized? That was the title of this book. So in response to his book came another book by one of his own countrymen, which showed that India is not only civilized, but Indian civilization and culture is so precious that it needs to be preserved for posterity for the benefit of the whole of the world. So that was essentially the tune. So he got a rebuttal from one of his own countrymen. What was the second result? Those were the days when Sri Aurobindo was writing for the Arya. He started writing one article every month about the Indian culture. And when those were put together, they gave us one of the best classical books on Indian culture, The Foundations of Indian Culture. So the criticism was hostile, but at the same time, even that hostile criticism probably had a divine purpose behind it. It gave us two good books on Indian culture, Sri Aurobindo's classic, including Sri Aurobindo's classic, The Foundations of Indian Culture. So criticism can be hostile. But some criticism can be sympathetic and constructive. The person is genuinely our friend and is trying to help us. Now this criticism can help us discover our own weaknesses and overcome them. What is very interesting, that this criticism can be sympathetic but not constructive. Even that can happen. Now how can that happen? That can happen, you see, when it comes from family and friends who are our well-wishers, but who may not be at a different level of consciousness. They are primarily working at the level of the intellect, which has a tendency to calculate. And therefore they can see that the choices that this person, this stupid relative or friend of theirs, the choices that he is making are so stupid. He is giving away his money in charity. He is going and volunteering and working completely free at some place when he could earn so much money. Instead, by putting in half that much work, he could grow rich. Why is he doing such stupid things? So they tell him that don't be stupid. Huh? They criticize him. Now, why? Because they cannot understand his happiness. As they say, one half of the world can't understand the happiness of the other. So these people who are calculating, they can't understand the happiness of this person who is acting out of love for his fellow beings. So he's giving what he has, and he's experiencing that joy of giving, and in that process fulfilling the purpose of his life, which is spiritual growth. He's transforming, he's becoming a different type of person, a person who is more stationed within and can therefore is in a state of perpetual peace rather than experiencing this happiness which comes from all these wealth, power, position, name, fame and so on. He's not looking for that. So he's experiencing a different type of happiness which they can't understand. So what should be done in this case? Not get angry with them. You can't understand me, and as if I'm on a superior plane and therefore you can't understand me. No, we don't have to do that. We have to understand them and don't expect them to understand you. Because you see, it's easier to understand something at a lower plane from a higher plane. When you're on an aeroplane, you can get a good view of whatever is on down. But when you are on the ground, you can't get a good view of what is at the mountain peak. So you have to understand that they will not understand you. That is also, you have to understand them and also understand why they look at things, look at you the way they do. And then be polite, thank them for their criticism, but at the same time go on doing what you're doing. The mother says, go on doing what you think is right with simplicity and sincerity without caring about the reactions of others. That applies to this type of situations. So go on doing that, but be polite, understand them, and don't expect them to understand you. And at the same time, without even within you a source of any sense of superiority. Because basically we are all imperfect. We are differently imperfect to different degrees, but basically we are also imperfect. Not only are those relatives and friends. And the soul has a long journey continuing from life to life. It's quite possible that a few lives back we were at their level. A few lives later they will be at our level where we are today. Not only that, the process is not linear. In this very life, I may be stationed here, but certain things may distract me, pull me down, and I can slide down. And those people whom I feel are at a lower level, they may suddenly get some trigger which wakes up their soul and they may take a big leap. So even this life itself, they may live at a higher level than me. That's also possible. It's not a perfectly, completely linear process following a straight line. It's a predictable curve. It doesn't follow that. So, which means that without any sense of arrogance, without sense of superiority, just go on doing. But what you can do, as the mother says, is smile inwardly. Don't smile outwardly, that will not be polite, but you can smile inwardly at their way of looking at things and continue doing what you are doing. So this is about criticism, which can create ashanti, which is sympathetic but not constructive. Another thing which is becoming very important these days, and I'm glad a few young people have just joined, very relevant, hunger for praise. Because we want more and more praise, and therefore we get anxious. Therefore we get ashanti, we lose peace. And what is that hunger expressing as? Oh, I have posted this on the social media, how many likes? This person posted, that person got so many likes. So jealousy and hunger for more and more praise. How many likes, what type of comments, how many views for my video? Hunger for praise. We all have that. We even forget that praise can come from incompetent sources who don't even know what they are praising. It can come from people who are not sincere in their praise and only flattering us because they are expecting us back from us, something back from us, without caring for what type of praise it is and why. It could be even purchased praise these days because you can buy the number of likes that your posts will get. We don't care what type of praise it is, but we are so hungry for it. And that's what the mother says, that when we are so hungry, the vital craves for praise so much that it is ready to accept even rotten food. Rotten food, means the type of praise which is not even worth getting. Insincere praise, flattery, praise which has been purchased. Now this is rotten food. We crave so much for it, we are so hungry for it, but we crave for it. And then after getting all this, what does it work to do? It boosts up our ego. It's basically an ego boost. And how does the ego express itself? I am so good. I am so great because I have got so many likes, so many people have praised me. Now it works as an ego boost. And the mother again gives a very beautiful example to tell us how stupid it is to say such a thing. She says, suppose there's a beautiful temple. And the temple says, look at me, how beautiful I am. What would we say? What a silly thing to do. Fortunately, temples don't speak. But what would we say? If a temple says, look at me, I'm so beautiful. You are beautiful because the designer, the architect who designed you did a very good job. That's why you are beautiful. We forget that if I have some real goodness, even if I have received some sincere praise, that is because of the qualities which were given to me by the one who designed me, by my architect. Who was my architect who designed me? The divine. So we forget that and we start boasting like this temple, see I am greater. So if a temple does it, we will think it is ridiculous. But if we do it, we say, well, it is okay. So that's the beautiful example the mother has given to help us understand why we should not have this hunger for praise. And secondly, even if we get some sincere praise, we should accept it with gratitude. We should realize that we have become worthy of that praise because some qualities have been given to me by the divine. So it's the creator, the designer, my architect who is responsible for it. And thirdly, it has made me more conscious of my self-worth. So let me see, in view of this self-worth which now has been given to me, of course I may be already familiar with it, but cases of low self-esteem do exist. So if such a person is made to realize his true worth better, then what should I do? I should use what has been given to me so generously by the Creator to give something that I have to those who need it, which means it should become an expression of my love for others. That is how I should use that realization of what I am worth. Okay. So that is the proper attitude with which this should be received. Which means that basically all types of ashanti, whether they are because of fulfilled desires, unfulfilled desires, regret about the past, anxiety about the future, criticism, or hunger for praise, whatever type of ashanti it is, it essentially gets cured by one thing, and that is uniting with the divine. Yukta asita mat paraha. That solution which has been given in the second chapter itself. But then we may say that, well, okay, even if we have not realized it, at least now we have some mental picture of what that stable, featureless shanti is about, a straight line in which there is neither joy nor sorrow, but you are just stable. But isn't that a very monotonous state? Is that really enough? It may be long lasting, but is it really enough? Doesn't seem to have any intensity, because we are looking for not only permanence, we are also looking for intensity. That stable peace has no intensity. Now, that intensity comes. It comes as a bonus. It comes as a side effect. It comes as a fringe benefit. We don't have to work for it. How does it come? Because we have seen throughout that when you are united with the divine and get this shanti, you get rid of all the ashanti. Parallel with it is a realization that the one with I am united is universal. It is not only within me, it is in everybody else. It gives us a sense of oneness. That oneness leads to love, and that love finds an expression. And when it finds an expression in giving what I have to those who need it, it gives me the joy of giving. So that joy, not the happiness of just getting something, that joy is what I am looking for. And this is something which even small children realize. I ask children very often, groups, if you have a group of children in front of you, what is it that makes you happy? Some of the commonest answers which will come very quickly is chocolates, a new dress, so on and so forth. After that will start coming another type of answer. When my father comes and spends time with me on my birthday. He comes home early so that because it's my birthday. When my parents give me a hug, I'm very happy. So now ask them, continue, what else? Then, invariably, sooner or later, some children will come up with things like this. When I give something to somebody, when I share something with somebody, when I help somebody. Now you can see broadly they fall in three categories. And these are the three categories. One is when I get something concrete like food, or good food, or a new dress. Second is not something concrete, but I'm getting something still. A hug or a kiss, or some love, somebody's time. Somebody spends time with me. So now that is again getting something, but setting something not concrete. Third is not getting anything, actually giving something. So children also realize it. Now, when you are united with the one, you are experiencing that third type of happiness, which is the best, and that is the joy of giving. It is the best because it has a superior feel. It does not have the same type of price tags associated with it, which were there with fulfillment of ordinary worldly desires. And it is entirely your control, because nobody can get everything that the person wants, but we can give what we want to. Nobody can stop us from giving. We can't force anybody to love us, but we can always love somebody. Of course, sometimes young people have raised this type of question also. I'm sorry I'm taking a little more time, but I think the topic is important and I have a lovely audience in front of me. So, let's suppose I love a girl. Boys say that quite often. But she has rejected me. So, then what can I do? Because say that you can always love somebody, but you can't force anybody to love you. Yes, I can't force her to love me, but she's not accepting my love. I love her, but she's not accepting it, so what can it? So even I don't feel free to love somebody. So I can't even give my love. The answer to that is very simple. The answer is, if you truly love her, you want to make her happy, right? If you want to make her happy and you think she'll be happy if you leave her alone, then you leave her alone. That is your expression of your love. That you can do, isn't it? So you expressed your love by giving what she needs. She wants to be left alone. You have left her alone. You have given her your love. You have made her happy. So you can always give. There's always a way to give your love. Nobody can stop you from doing that. So it means that Shanti is not enough for us. We do want joy. We want delight. And these are the types of superior, better words that we use: joy, delight, ecstasy, bliss, and so on and so forth. These are the rising grades of happiness which we often use, which are quite distinct from ordinary pleasures and ordinary happiness. That's why we have all these range of words expressing different levels. And in a way, what is happening is, when we are united with the One, what we are experiencing is the delight which the Divine itself also has. The Divine is capable of delight. That's why we call it Sachidanand. The Ananda part is the delight of the Divine. The Divine has that quality attribute. It's a self-existent delight. It has delight because it exists. It is, and therefore it is happy. Just happy in being. So the Divine is capable of that, and we can get a fraction of it, a glimmer of it, when we are experiencing this type of joy, when we are united with the One and giving expression to that union through love by giving something to others. So we are getting a glimmer of that, and that is why it is an expression of that self-existent delight which the Divine also has. So that's why Sri Aurobindo says, in his Upanishad, that you are Anandasya Putra. You are the children of Ananda, the delight. So that is one of the aspects of the Divine, Sachidan. You are his or his children. You are Anandasya Putra. You are the children of that delight. Prakashatam. Express it, bring it to light. Bring to light that hidden delight which you have, because you are the children of that self-existent delight. So finally, what can end with is that the peace is certainly the foundation. Without peace, without Shanti, forget about happiness. So peace is the foundation. Without peace, there can be no happiness. It looks very elementary now, but then so often we are looking for happiness, not even thinking that peace is the first thing and then only happiness will come. So peace is the foundation. Without peace, there can be no happiness. Ashantasya kutah sukham. That's what we started. With Ashanti, there can be no sukh. Where can be sukh? Kutah sukham. Where is sukh? If there's Ashanti, Ashantasya kutah sukham. So peace is the foundation. And peace needs a stable mind. One has to be sthita pragya. And stability can come only when the mind is anchored to what it itself is stable, and that is only the Divine. So when the mind is anchored to that, then it will be stable. Which means that when we are looking for happiness, we are very often reminded that you are looking for happiness at the wrong place. Happiness does not reside in food. Happiness does not reside in worldly objects of pleasure. It doesn't reside in possessing more and more. We are told you are looking for it at the wrong place. We are not told that when you are looking for happiness, you are not only looking for it at wrong places, you are looking for the wrong thing. You should not be looking for happiness at all. Look for peace. Okay? That is what's important. I think take 2 minutes more and end it with a mantra. And that mantra also brings out this thing. Very popular mantra, but in which one of the lines we don't give enough attention to. It has 4 lines. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Let everybody be happy. Sarve santu niramaya. Let everybody be free from disease. We jump to the 4th line now. Ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. let nobody have even the slightest bit of sorrow. Now, why these three lines, although they're expressing nearly the same thing? They're nearly the same thing, but not exactly the same thing. Let everybody be happy, good. Let everybody be free from disease. They are independent. One can be happy even in spite of having a disease. A person may not have a disease and still may be unhappy. Both the things are possible. Huh? Just having a disease does not mean that the person also has to be miserable. So they are independent. Somewhat related, but not completely interdependent. Then how about let nobody have even the slightest bit of sorrow. Now, again, distinct from the other two, you may have all the worldly comforts. One may be even free from disease, but that does not mean that there is no source of sorrow. So many sorrows, interpersonal relationships, top category, which can bring a lot of sorrow even to a person who has all the physical comforts of so-called sukha and who has no disease. So that's why three lines are necessary. But what about the third line? Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. What is that? Let everybody be tuned, or rather pashyanti is see. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. See means be aware of it, and being aware is not enough, be tuned to it. What? Bhadra, the most auspicious. What is the most auspicious? The divine. So let everybody be aware of the divine, be tuned to it. Why that third line, which seems to be out of sync with the other three lines? Because that is the key line. If you are tuned to the divine, if you are joined with the divine, if you are aware of the divine, if your outer life is being guided by the divine, other three will automatically follow. You will be happy, there will be no sorrow, no ashanti, and modern medicine has confirmed that you are also likely to be free from disease. Very unlikely to fall ill, and if a person falls ill, one will recover much faster and more completely, and still there's no guarantee. The greatest of yogis have also had illnesses, they have died, they have also had painful diseases, all that has happened. But one thing which distinguished them from the ordinary mortals like me is that when they were going through that phase, they were ill, they knew that they will not live in this world for very long, but they were not miserable. So they had that peace. Not only that peace, they had that delight of existence. So that is what distinguished them. So that is the key, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. So if you look at in this light, you understand that why these four lines, why these different things, being happy, being free from disease and having no sorrow, and why particularly the third line, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. That is the key line. So with that, let's now end with the Sri Aurobindo's Gayatri, in which we are told to meditate upon that supreme light which will illumine the total truth through us. The total truth is the divine. Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyotih Parasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Deepayet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.